Hey everyone, welcome to Reddit Readout. Today we are checking out Nuclear Revenge. Story 1. Fire me for speaking up, enjoy going out of business. Initially posted this in r/petty revenge, was told it would also be good story to tell in this sub. This is a long one, skip to the bottom for the TLDR if you must. Edit, forgot a few words and sentences on the initial post. Many years ago, I worked at an automotive repair shop that was owned by a very nasty person. This person actually had 2 shops that he ran, and the best way I can describe him was as a tyrant. Both shops had cameras, and he would watch us work from the comfort of his home. If he saw something he didn't like, such as taking a 5-minute smoke break, or not sweeping for half a minute during downtime, or if he just wanted to bust balls, he would call the shop and harass us. Or better yet, at times, show up and harass us in person. In addition, he would regularly berate us for no reason, threaten to not pay us because the shops weren't busy, and would have an absolute meltdown if you dared question his authority. It was spectacular, in the worst of ways. After working for him for a few months, and dealing with his shenanigans, and getting sick of pointless arguments with him, I started reconsidering my employment there. Around the same time, the owner decided to move me from one shop to the other, really for no reason other than likely to try push me out, as that was what he did with the few people that I had already worked with. Odd coincidence being that I had not discussed my thoughts of leaving with anyone, but I digress. I genuinely disliked the idea of working at this other shop. It was older and a bit run down, plus it was in a pretty terrible area with high crime. But, I wanted to line something up elsewhere before I jumped ship. So I made the move. This is where the beginning of the end started for Mr. Owner. Once I got settled into the new shop, I got to talking with my fellow technicians. As it turns out, the owner was unsurprisingly a racist scumbag, and every single one of the employees at this location, aside from me, was African American. I'll spare you the details, but let's just say it's a miracle that the owner came into the shop, said what he said, and walked out breathing. In addition, he would regularly send people home with no pay for the day just to be an ass. This went on for a few weeks, him coming by, being nasty to all of us, and I was over it, and was just about to leave as I had lined up other employment. The other techs were also over it. I went to give the owner my 2-week notice via duct phone, discreetly, which I should have known wasn't a great idea, and instead of discussing it like a human, he decided to come down and talk face to face. Well, our friend was so incensed that I put my notice in that he forced me to clock out and go home, and also forced 2 other techs who decided to stand up for me to do the same. I decided that I had enough of this guy's shit, and that not only did he deserve to have some kind of reciprocation against him, but the other techs deserved better than to continually being walked on. So I filed a complaint with the Department of Labor, and outlined everything. Within a few days they had launched an investigation, and of course the owner found out who filed the complaint and called the shop, and gave me hell about it, stupidly, because the phones he had were on recorded lines. Guess who I had request to listen to that conversation? In the end, I was terminated by him prior to my 2 weeks being up, as were the 2 techs who stood behind me. I filed for unemployment, which he fought me on by filing appeals with a judge, then not showing up 3 times in a row. This prompted the judge to bar him from requesting appeals against me, and granting me full unemployment pay. Months later I got a written letter from him extending an apology and offered to work for him again. 2 months later, I got a letter from the dole saying that the investigation was closed, and that he had been found guilty of multiple charges and was barred from operating a shop or any other business in the state for several years. TLDR fucked around with my sanity, lost the ability to own shit. Story 2. You're gonna out me as gay to everyone, prepare to have your entire future go up in flames. This was almost 7 years ago. I grew up in a small town from hick country. Always knew I was gay, everyone else is homophobic, was planning on staying in the closet till I move out, etc. You know the song. 7 years ago, a certain senator from Vermont announced his candidacy for President of the United States, and me being the edgy high school senior who couldn't keep his mouth shut, I went all in on the online activism. Mostly on Reddit, r/Sander for President, but most importantly on Twitter where I had a fan account with 10k followers that I wouldn't shut up about. This didn't go over well with everyone, but people knew my politics and I was just a terminally online 17-year-old high schooler, so no one took it seriously. I guess my parents got a few. Story 3. Cheating ex-flaunts side chick loses his job and she gets graduation dress burned into oblivion. This happened almost 10 years ago, so even if dots get connected, I know I'm safe as per our laws. This didn't actually happen to me, but I executed the revenge. TLDR at the end. My last year of middle school I introduced my best friend, whom I'm gonna call Lily, to one of my arts classmates, who I'm gonna call Shitty. They dated for around 7 years, all through high school and uni, until she found right after graduation Shitty D been cheating on her with his classmate from uni, Catty Cat. Lily and Shitty took language lessons at a small school next to a big shopping mall, and after their breakup I went with her there so she could cancel her classes. I'd been giving her grand speeches about how life would take care of teaching the guy a lesson, all this crap. After being done with cancellation fees, papers, and all, we went into the mall for a feel-better dessert, and guess who was there at the food court? Shitty, who spotted me and Lily right away, and Catty Cat, who looked as white as a ghost. Shitty literally dragged Catty Cat towards us, who were both frozen because can you believe it? And forced Catty Cat, who clearly wanted to be anywhere but there, to greet Lily, and asked Lily, "Are you not gonna talk to me?" All the while with a disgusting grin. I pulled Lily from there without a word, we left the mall, walked to the bus stop, all in silence. After I had digested what had just happened, I told Lily, "You know what I said about life? Forget it, it's gonna take too long." I know what I did afterwards was illegal, and only later would I realize how catastrophic it could have been. Lily still had all of Shitty's passwords, bank account, email, cell phone etc., and he had hers. As soon as we got home, she'd been staying with me since the breakup, I made her change all her passwords, and asked her for his emails. That's all I wanted. In our country, WhatsApp is the most used social media, and we often set it to backup daily into our Google Drive or Gmail. Shitty had his backup on Gmail. I schemed through 2 years worth of conversation with Catty Cat, complete with pics and audio files, and screenshot/cropped out the most interesting parts, such as them talking about sex in the restrooms and emergency exit at Shitty's work during his shift, bragging about how they blinded their so's to have their escapades. Turns out Catty Cat was married. Now, I was going to send the clippings of doom to Shitty's family, he was their golden boy, but I got a better idea after learning how bad they had fucked up. So I tracked down Shitty's boss on LinkedIn, got his work email, found Catty Cat's husband on FB and, using a throwaway account, sent them the bomb. Heard through the grapevine Shitty got fired, but cried, literally, for a second chance, and was on probation at work, one more fuck up and bye. Not the outcome that I wanted, but met. Fast forward a few months, I was talking to my cousin and she was telling me about how her fiancé colleague was traveling all over the world, and he recently posted some pictures at a bar made of ice, and she wanted to travel there too. She showed me the picture the guy had posted. Lo and behold, traveling colleague was Catty Cat's ex-husband, Rick. I asked her how she knew Rick, and she told me he was her fiancé's friend and work colleague. I didn't tell her about my shenanigans, only said Rick's ex-wife and my best friend's ex had cheated on her, and inconspicuously, I hope, asked my cousin how Rick was, how it must have been a sad breakup for him, and did she spill the tea. So, Catty Cat had introduced Rick to Shitty during her graduation ceremony a few weeks before I sent the bomb, saying, "Look, this is the friend who helped me with my graduation project." Rick had allowed Shitty and Catty Cat to use his computer at home for said project. Turns out they were fucking on his bed while he was working his ass off to pay for her sorry 1, and she made him shake hands with her lover. Rick was a programmer, Catty Cat was from the countryside, and she'd been living in the city with him for a few years. Rick had an awesome salary, he paid for everything so Catty Cat could focus on uni. But one day, he received some evidence his wife was cheating on him, with the guy he'd shaken hands, the same guy he allowed to use his computer, in his house, to help his wife do her graduation project. Rick got her graduation dress, set it on fire, shoved her into the car, drove all the way to her family's home in the countryside, reportedly, dragged her into her parents' house by the hair, made her kneel and tell her mother and father what she'd been doing. Her father was so distressed, he had a minor stroke, and her mother kicked her out and cut her off from the family. As far as I know, last I checked was 5 years ago, they were still NC. Rick threw her out of his house, she moved in with Shitty's family, and Rick, now with his salary bitch free, was living la vida loca going to ice bars in neighboring countries. And I was desperate. Had Rick been 1% madder, he could have burned her along with the dress. Her father could have died after my interference. I didn't calculate how Rick could react at all. I called Lily, told her all about it, lost my sleep over it for weeks, even considered confessing to what I did. Lily asked me to let it go, what was done, to take this as a lesson and let life run its course the next time, as I'd initially said it would. I'm not proud of it, and even though I don't lose sleep over it anymore, I still feel somewhat guilty. Confessing here is kind of cathartic, though. Edit. Fixed some mistakes now that I've stopped shaking and am able to function again, hope now it's easier to understand, I rushed when wrote the first time round, TL, Dr. Lily is my best friend, Shitty is her ex Catty Cat was his side chick, Rick was her husband. Catty Cat introduced husband to lover on her grad ceremony, they shook hands. Shitty forced an encounter between Lily and Catty Cat after the breakup. I sent Shitty's boss and Rick evidence of what was going on. Shitty lost his job, Rick divorced Catty Cat after burning her graduation dress and making her tell her parents why they were getting divorced. Story 4. Don't mess with Southerners. Okay, so before I start I want to first say, I cannot attest to the validity of this story. It isn't mine, but a story a friend's great-grandfather told them when they were younger, and from what I've heard the man wasn't all there towards the end. My friend told me this story and I thought it fit here. So, back when my friend's GGF was in his early 20s he had been very close with this one family. They were described to me as a family of swamp people, but Floridian. There was the grandfather, father, mother, uncle, 2 daughters, and 3 brothers that lived in this little trailer park in the woods. They kept to themselves and didn't bother anyone. GGF only knew them because he had met the youngest daughter while in school and were dating. He got a job from the grandfather and was kinda absorbed into the family. He worked in their bait shop with the uncle, and life went on. Well, one day the eldest daughter went to a party some local boys were throwing and dragged her sister along. GGF and uncle were at the bait shop, mother and father was at home, no one knew where the 3 brothers were, and grandfather was on the couch napping his 6th beer away. During the party the 2 sisters split apart and the younger one ended up getting pulled away by 2 guys. They did you know what and then ran when the older sister found them. News got back to the family quick and as my friend put it the brother miraculously materialized and the old man rose. For the next week the men of the family searched for those boys and found them. They weren't locals and were visiting family, but the men broke into their home, beat them up, tied them up, and took them deep into the glades. In the glades grandfather handed GGF a revolver and said she's your woman, so GGF took the gun. He thought about just shooting them dead then and there, but instead shot them each in one leg and told them if you find your way back I guess I'll forgive you. Then they left. Those guys were never heard from again. Never came out of the glades and their truck was later sold to a neighbor by family members. My friend told me he asked why his GGF didn't just shoot them and he said I wanted to see if God would forgive them, because I wouldn't. Personally I interpreted that to mean God showed them mercy by letting them die in the swamp instead of by the hands of GGF. Until my friend told me that story I didn't think Florida had mafia type shit like that. That's all for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.